What is going on, Av Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about why it's so hard to lose weight when you're at home and what you can do to fix it. Now, I get it. We're all in quarantine life right now. I'm in quarantine life. My family's in quarantine life. Everyone's in quarantine life, which means we are stuck at home. We can't go out except for essential things, and that's few and far between. So in this video, it's not just for the intermittent fasting crew, it's for anybody. This is going to explain why it's so hard to lose weight during a quarantine while being stuck at home and what you can do to break out of that. Trust me, you have to put a block in the road, because if you continue this path, you're going to build some habits that are going to be hard to break, and you're going to have to restart some of the things that you were doing so successfully before. I know it's hard, but it's best that you go ahead and do this. And I'm going to go ahead and break it down in this video. Stay tuned. Quickly before we start, this video is brought to you by the Coldest Water. It's probably the best water bottle that you can find in terms of how long it keeps your water cold. Yes, studies have been done going back to the 1980s in which they find hot water more soothing, but cold water more palatable. And you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to continue a healthy habit. There's a link below so you can go ahead and buy your own The Coldest Water bottle. You can go ahead and use the promo code Fledge, and that'll do two things. It'll support this channel, and it'll give you 10% off any of the orders of any of the water bottles from the Coldest Water. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the video. First thing we're going to talk about of why it's so hard to lose weight while stuck at home, while being at home, is food accessibility. Now you're probably thinking, well, there isn't any food anymore. I can't buy food. There isn't any money, or there just isn't food available. How is food very accessible? Now let's be a little real for a second. The number one thing you're going to prioritize are essential things during a quarantine. Even if there isn't money available, you are going to find ways to get food, to have food in the house. Food is an essential item. You need it to survive, so you are most likely going to have food. I get quarantine makes it harder for you maybe, but you're going to have it because you need it to survive. And before, you had routines that kept you away from having accessibility to food. For example, if you were at work and you had a full-time job, you were working about 8 hours. 8 hours for 5 days a week, where you just couldn't, at the drop of a hat, eat something every single second or whenever you wanted or at any moment. You had to work. You could not eat. So because you have removed that barrier, you basically could just go to the pantry at any time. And because of this accessibility factor, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to lose weight while in a quarantine. It's very different when you're in a situation where you know you can eat without any interruptions and without any repercussions, versus you can't eat because you got to do your job and you only get one lunch break and then maybe another 15-minute break. Believe it or not, your job or your work schedule creates a barrier that helps you control your food intake. To a certain degree, of course, some people still can find ways to abuse it, but that barrier is still there. It's a form of resistance. So it's a problem, and it's causing weight loss to be difficult while at home. So what do? Well, number one, knowing is half the battle. Now you know that that's a problem. Some people never thought of it, even though it is somewhat obvious, but some people didn't think about it. But now that you know it's a problem, what you can do is you can create an eating schedule. Now it could be an intermittent fasting type schedule. It can not be an intermittent fasting schedule, but creating a schedule is going to help you, because at least you know, hey, I have from this time to this time to eat, and I shouldn't eat after that. This way I can control myself a little bit more and have some type of structure when it comes to how I eat and, of course, when I eat. This will go a long way, because even for those who think that calorie counting is all that matters, if you are just eating all the time without any restriction, you can easily go above your caloric intake. Now let's go ahead and talk about the second thing that makes it super hard to lose weight while in a quarantine or in your home, is your rhythm and pattern. Your rhythm and pattern has completely been shattered. Now, this is not talking about the barriers that you have with being at a workplace or being at a job. This is simply your rhythm and pattern. There's something that is called action chunking, and I've talked about this many times before in multiple videos. But this is simply a sequence of events that you continuously repeat every single day or most of the days throughout the week. And because you repeat these events, that sequence system becomes one big daily habit that you acquire. And it could be good, it can be bad, but if you were on the right path to weight loss and then now you've just been abruptly stopped and you're on quarantine and you're noticing that weight gain is happening, then you have just been snapped off of whatever pattern you had. And the pattern doesn't necessarily have to correlate with the act of losing weight or the act of fitness. For example, waking up in the morning and tidying up the house and looking for the clothes that you're going to wear to go to work. That action doesn't necessarily correlate specifically with fitness and weight loss, but because you're doing that in the morning, you really don't have any time to eat. So you get in the car and you just go to work. And when you get to work, you just don't eat because it's time for you to get to work. You have to start working now. And then you wait till maybe lunchtime, and that's like 12 or 1 or 2 o'clock, and then you eat. Then you come back to work, you do what you need to do, and then you go home, and then you want to go to the gym. You come from the gym, you feel like you need to go for a run. You're in your rhythm, you're in your flow, you're in your routine. And now that's completely been shattered. You're just home. So now you're building new habits. And more than likely, because of what I've already mentioned in terms of food accessibility, you're probably creating poor habits that are contributing to you gaining weight as opposed to you either remaining the same or losing weight. So what do you do in this situation? Well, it's one of those things that's easy to say, harder to do. You build a brand new habit structure. Look, we don't know how long we are going to be in this quarantine situation. So you need to build a habit structure that will hold you down until you can go back into your regular routine. And it has to be created within the realms of the circumstances that we're currently in. You can't go to the gym anymore. You're not recommended to go outside and do your run or walk. You're not recommended to do any of those things. You have to social distance. Figure out ways to do things like at-home workouts, putting that in your routine. You want to make sure that you're trying to build muscle, but at the very least that you're maintaining the muscle that you already have, because gradually losing those muscle tissues is going to go against you and it's going to help you actually gain more weight. Create new patterns. Find out things that you could watch on TV. That can be a pattern that you create, watching a show, working on a project. Those are things that you can integrate, create a sequence of events based on a daily structure, and then that way you have this rhythm formed. So this way you can combat the fact that your rhythm has been abruptly stopped. Now you can abruptly start a new one. Now let's go into the third reason, and probably the more likely reason why most people are not losing weight and are actually even gaining weight during this quarantine situation. Boredom. Simply put, boredom. I even circled it on my notes. Boredom is the number one reason why most people have completely fallen off the rails. And the component of being bored, that component has never been more heightened than it is right now. You are stuck at home. You can't go to work. You can't go to the gym. You can't go play basketball. You can't go play baseball. You cannot do anything. It isn't a cool thing where you're just not at work and that's cool, right? Well, no, because you can't do anything while not being at work. You can't go to the mall. You can't go watch a game. You can't go to the movies. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't have fun. You can't enjoy. You can't leave. So then what do? You get stuck watching television for so long or on your computer or on your phone, and you just get bored. It's too mundane and it's too monotonous to continue to do these things over and over again. So you want to trigger some type of excitement, and believe it or not, emotional eating is incredibly powerful. Even if you have anorexia or bulimia, or you don't have any of those things, or you don't have any eating disorder per se, eating does attribute to an excitement release in your brain. So yeah, you're basically bored. And meta-analysis have shown this over and over again. People eat because they're bored. And even in one meta-analysis, researchers were able to even predict the calorie intake, the amount of protein, the amount of carbohydrates, and the amount of fats that the groups are going to consume based on an estimated amount pretty accurately, simply understanding the emotional impact of boredom eating. So you have to replace the fun that you have when you're bored from food to anything else, be it card games or video games or watching TV. You have to replace the breaking of being bored from food to anything else. You have to be cognizant that that's what you're doing, and then you have to try to figure out something else. The more you continue to do that, the more ghrelin release you would have on all of those points when you actually decide to eat. So then it heightens it and it makes it easier for you to eat the next day during those times again. You have to break away. Find something else that's fun to do that's different. If you're watching TV, do something like play a card game. If you're playing a card game, watch TV. If you don't want to do none of those things, maybe play video games. Or if you don't want to do that, maybe do some workouts. Whatever it is, you have to remove yourself from that boredom by doing something other than eating. Just be aware that a lot of you are eating because you're bored, and that is attributing to the weight gain or the difficulty in weight loss. Now, the other thing we're going to talk about is quick foods. Quick foods is something that a lot of people are eating now because it's cheaper, and that's something that unfortunately is probably what you're able to afford because of this situation. It's set up as somewhat of a snack, so it's quick, you don't have to cook it, you don't have to do anything, and boom, you get some food in your system. But more than likely, unfortunately, those things are high in sugar and high in carbohydrates. And it isn't to say, oh, carbohydrates is just bad. It's bad to have carbohydrates. It's not, but when you have simple carbs coming in, things like white bread or pastries or snacks or chips and candies and things like that, when you have simple carbs coming into your system, they're not satiating. So you can eat 300 calories or 400 or 500 calories of simple carbs and still not feel satisfied. Meanwhile, you can eat 300 calories of something that's high in protein, and that's going to be satiating. But guess what? The calorie intake is the same. You had 300 and 400 calories within something that's predominantly protein, and then you had 300, 400 calories with simple carbs that didn't fill you up. So guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna eat more. But what about with the high protein meal? You're probably not gonna eat as much because satiety tends to be higher with higher protein foods. And protein is more metabolically active than carbs and fats to begin with. Even within itself, you get a higher percentage of calorie burn. So try to eat things that are higher in protein. They're more satiating. Try to limit things that are simple carbs, which unfortunately are all those snack foods. Try to cook something at home. It'll help you create barriers that you need psychologically, and it's probably gonna be a better meal for you. And that about wraps it up. I'm gonna go